Greetings, my dear viewers, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons Character Concept. I guess you could say this is Season 2. Today we are going over the... not sure if you can count it as homebrew, because it is still technically Wizards of the Coast material, but this is the Plane Shift series, where you're able to travel through all of the different planes that can be found in Magic the Gathering. We do have 2 official books, Theros and Ravnica, but this little series goes to all the other planes. Well, unfortunately not all of them, but it does go through some of the important ones. And today is Plane Shift Kaladesh, where we take a look at the Aetherborn. Now, the Aetherborn are a series of creatures that, well, they are made of aether, which is, from what I can tell, the sort of conduit for magic. And the Aetherborn come into being when the aether is used rather frequently. In case of Kaladesh, it is put into a lot of their machines. Configurated into the machines, calibrated into the machines. And that is how some of these Aetherborn were born. And the life cycle of the Aetherborn is rather short. You could have an Aetherborn live as little as 4 weeks, or as long as 4 years. But they don't have the same life cycle as we do. They don't age slowly. They are automatically in the adult stage of their life. They just live this long, which is kind of astounding to think about. What could you do with only 4 weeks in your life, 4 years in your life? Well, the Aetherborn milk every last second and enjoy life, which is definitely a concept that you could use to make your characters. Perhaps you have multiple different ideas for characters, but you don't think you have the time to use them. That's when you use the Aetherborn to give yourself a lore-based reason to change these concepts. You can test out certain subclasses at your leisure, which is definitely interesting. And like I said, the Aether takes part in summoning creatures with spells. When they materialize, they are pulled from the Aether. Raw etheric matter is referred to as the very stuff of the cosmos. So in Dungeons & Dragons terminology, this is the liquid arcane. I guess, in older editions, you can even call this the phlogiston, which was a term used in the Spelljammer series way back when. But this is the weave in a tangible form. You're basically a living conjuration spell, which seems kind of weird, but, it's still pretty good. As far as characters go, the most common backgrounds that I can see for an Aetherborn are the athlete, city watch, criminal, entertainer, mercenary, the Master aristocrat, smuggler, spy, and the urban bounty hunter. At least that's what I'm getting from the cards that we have. Some of the lore even dictates that some Aetherborn might take up vampirism in order to attempt to live longer. Which is kind of sad, but what can you do to extend your life? Almost nothing. For classes, the most common are the Artificer, Fighter, and Rogue, as we just seen from the cards that we looked at the bottom right-hand corner. So let's go ahead and jump right into the different classes and see which subclasses will best fit the Aetherborn based off of the lore that we just talked about. Starting things off with the Artificer, I definitely see the Artificer specialist of Armorer, Artillerist, and Battlesmith to be the most common. But I can definitely see a Master Maker as one for a couple of Aetherborn, because we did see some Aetherborn tinkering with technology in order to improve their body. That's why they didn't have to resort to vampirism. Moving on to the Bard, we are trying to live life to the fullest. So it makes sense to go with the Bard, and what's even more interesting is because Aetherborn have such a short lifespan, some of them don't see death as a time of mourning. During the last few days of an Aetherborn's life, all of the Aetherborn and their friends come together and party, a way to celebrate the time that this Aetherborn has spent up to this point. So definitely having some form of entertainer would make sense. Someone who knows how to bring up the party and rock the house down. For your bardic colleges, I would say Eloquence, Glamour, Spirits, and Whispers are going to be your more prominent, though Satire, the Unearthed Arcana Bardic College, definitely has that little bit of extra flavor that an Aetherborn might have. Moving on to Druids, though we don't really see any cards for Aetherborn Druids, I do somewhat see an Aetherborn taking up the Druid mantle, especially if we are talking about the Circle of the Forged and the Circle of Stars. Since Aetherborn are made from the very cosmos, it makes sense to have the Circle of Stars be one of those options. I only did Circle of the Forge for that Kaladesh theme, though you probably could even put an Aetherborn in Eberron, since they have roughly the same sort of technological advances. Next is Fighter, another one of the more common classes that you'll see among Aetherborn. For your martial archetypes, the Battlemaster, Brute, Cavalier, Echo Knight, Gunslinger, Renegade, and Scout are going to be the ones that I think would fit perfectly with this race. Brute and Scout are both Unearthed Arcana. Echo Knight I thought would be rather fitting, since that's basically what an Aetherborn is. They are a manifestation of magic, and the Echo Knight conjures a unseen potential lifetime of the Aetherborn. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense to go that route. Cavalier, we are mostly going for the fact that the Kaladesh sets were when we got the vehicles, and you have creatures, sometimes one, sometimes more, tap in order to let that vehicle become a creature, so you have multiple riders, which is why I went for the Cavalier. Moving on to the Monk class. This would probably be the least likely for an Aetherborn, but I can see the Aetherborn being at peace with their short lifetime and taking up the monastic traditions of either the astral self, going off of that cosmos feel once more, and shadow, since some Aetherborn are known to go as mercenaries and use the shadows to hide from their quarry. Moving on to Paladin. Once again, milking every second of your life, the Sacred Oath of Glory does make the most sense. I also picked the Unearthed Arcana Oath of Tragedy, not tragedy, treachery, for that extra little bit of flavor, since a lot of Aetherborn work for themselves. That way they can enjoy their life, not live for anyone else. So you'll see some mafia boss Aetherborn with this subclass, I feel. Moving on to Ranger. The Conclave of the Gloomstalker and the Hunter seem the most likely, in my opinion. Once again, that going off of the hiding in shadows and playing the role of an assassin. Speaking of which, the next class we are going over is the Rogue, with the roguish archetype of the Assassin, the Mastermind, and the Thief. I chose Mastermind for those sort of, like I said, mafia leaders, those aristocratic higher folk that use their political intrigue to get what they want. And finally, we have the Warlock. For your otherworldly patron, I can see Ghost in the Machine mostly for that Kaladesh feel, but that is not as likely as our second patron, the Undying patron. Like I said, a lot of Aetherborn will choose to go the vampiric route. Now, I said Undying and not Undead because the Undying Warlock gets the feature of Undying Nature, which lets you live longer. For every 10 years that pass, your body ages 1 year, and you are immune to being magically aged. It is a level 10 feature, and your Dungeon Master might be cruel and kill your character off before you can get to that point, but having an Aetherborn live for 40 years instead of 4 as a maximum definitely gives you that extra bit of flavor. And that is all for today. If you're wondering why I didn't pick Wizard, I don't think that many Aetherborn would pick Wizard, because, well, you'd have to study the arcane for an unbelievable amount of time, and the Aetherborn don't have time for that. They want to milk every last second of their life and enjoy it. And why in the world would they waste it on reading books? Though I could see an argument for conjuration wizards if you are wanting a Aetherborn wizard. Anyway, that is all the time I have for you today. I do hope that you enjoyed this comeback to character concept. Let me know your builds for an Aetherborn character down below. And tell me which one of the Planeshift races you're looking forward to. Until next time, this has been Drahon, and I am offline.